I never imagined I'd be standing in my own vacation home, staring at my ex-husband's new girlfriend's suitcase on my floor. Not in my wildest dreams. Not after everything I'd done for him. Not after 20 years of standing by his side, raising our children, building a life from scratch, and supporting him through job losses, business ventures, and midlife crises. But the worst part? It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the smug little smile she gave me when I walked in. Let me take you back. Because this didn't start with a suitcase. It started with a lie. A slow, slippery one. The kind that sneaks in through the cracks of a tired marriage. His name was Peter, and for 2 decades, he was my husband, my partner, my everything, I thought. We met in college. Classic meet-cute stuff. I was studying art history. He was the business-minded guy who used to make jokes about how useless my degree was, until I started selling custom artwork and bringing in more money than he did. I should have seen it back then. The little bruises to his ego. But I brushed them off. I believed in us. We got married at 25, bought a modest home, had 2 kids. I ran a small business painting custom murals for nurseries and yoga studios. He bounced between jobs, always chasing some new business idea. I never complained. I held us down while he figured things out. At 40, I finally treated myself. After years of sacrifice, I used a chunk of my inheritance from my late mother to buy a small vacation house by the lake. It was my happy place. A cozy 2-bedroom cottage surrounded by tall trees in silence. I poured my heart into decorating it. Soft blues, light linens, handmade ceramic vases, and paintings I'd made myself. I even had a garden where I planted my mom's favorite tulips. Peter loved it too. At least, he pretended to. He'd bring his friends there for business retreats and take credit for every little touch I added. Again, I let it slide. After all, what was mine was his, or so I thought, until I wasn't enough anymore. It started subtly. Peter got distant. More time at work, less time at home. He stopped asking me about my day. Didn't touch me the same way. I thought maybe it was just midlife stress. I even suggested therapy. He laughed it off. "You're being dramatic, Olivia," he'd say, waving me away like a child. Then he started working out more, buying new clothes, keeping his phone face down. The signs were there, blinking like neon in the dark, but I ignored them. I didn't want to believe the man I'd loved for 20 years could lie to me like this. Until one night, he didn't come home. Not a call, not a text. I stayed up the whole night pacing, worrying that he was in a ditch somewhere. The next morning, he walked in wearing the same clothes he left in, cool as ever, and casually said he'd fallen asleep at a coworker's house. A female coworker. That was the beginning of the end. Within 3 months, he sat me down at our dining table, the same one we'd bought with our wedding money, and said he was done. No tears, no apology, just a shrug and the words, "I don't love you anymore, Olivia." He packed a bag and left. Just like that. I won't lie. I broke down. For weeks, I barely ate. I cried until my face hurt. I felt humiliated and discarded. Like trash. 20 years of loyalty reduced to a shrug. Our kids, both in college by then, were shocked but tried to stay neutral. "We just want you both to be happy," they'd say, not knowing the full weight of what he'd done. But while I cried, he flourished. Suddenly, Peter was all over social media, posting pictures with a woman named Tessa, blonde, younger, always posing in expensive clothes and tagging fancy restaurants. Guess whose money paid for all that? Mine. See, Peter never made much. Most of what we owned, our cars, our savings, even his business startups, were funded by me or my side hustle. But in the divorce, I didn't fight for much. I just wanted peace. I kept the house, the vacation home, a few bank accounts. He got some investments and his freedom. Or so I thought. I didn't realize he had his eyes on something else. Something I wasn't about to give up so easily. It was a breezy Saturday when I decided to drive up to the lake house. I hadn't been there since the divorce. Too many memories. But that morning, something tugged at me. A need for fresh air, for solitude, for closure, maybe. I didn't even tell the kids I was going. Just packed a bag, grabbed some groceries, and took the 2-hour drive in silence, listening to soft piano music and trying to steady my heart. When I pulled into the gravel driveway, I noticed something strange. There was a silver BMW parked out front, a car I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped. At first, I thought maybe the neighbors had visitors and parked in the wrong spot. But when I walked up to the door and found it unlocked, dread settled in my bones. I stepped inside, and that's when I saw it. Luggage. 2 suitcases by the entryway. A pair of red stilettos kicked off by the staircase. A jacket draped over the back of my reading chair. My reading chair. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. I moved through the house in disbelief, heart thudding. That's when I heard a giggle from upstairs, followed by a man's voice. "Peter, I swear." For a moment, the world tilted. I marched up the stairs and pushed open the bedroom door. There they were, Peter and Tessa, lying in my bed, as if they owned the place. He sat up, stunned. She gasped, pulling the blanket up to her chin like a damsel in distress. "Olivia?" Peter stammered, scrambling to his feet. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stood there, calm and burning. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" Peter blinked. "Our house," he said, as if I'd simply forgotten. Tessa chimed in, sweetly smug. "Oh, I didn't realize you'd be visiting his vacation property this weekend." His? That was the moment I knew. He hadn't told her. She thought this place belonged to him, and he thought I'd rolled over and given it up like everything else. I laughed, a short, sharp laugh. Not out of humor, out of rage, barely restrained. "You mean my vacation home, the one I paid for with my mother's inheritance? The one that's in my name, and only mine?" Peter's mouth opened, closed. He had nothing. Tessa scoffed. "Why would he bring me here if it wasn't his? He said you gave it to him in the divorce." "Oh, Peter, so that's what you told her. Would you like to see the deed?" I said coldly. "Because I've got a copy in the lockbox downstairs." Peter tried to speak, but I held up a hand. "Don't. Just don't. You brought her here without my permission. You lied to her. And now you're both trespassing." Tessa looked at him like he was a roach. "You told me this was yours, Pete." He flinched. He hated when people called him that. "Olivia, let's just talk." "No," I said, voice steel. "Get out." They hesitated. I turned, walked down the stairs, and pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police." Peter scrambled. All right. We're going." He ran downstairs, throwing things into bags. Tessa stormed past me, with her heels in her hands, red-faced and muttering something under her breath about how this wasn't worth it. I watched them pack up in silence. It wasn't until they drove off that I finally exhaled. Then I locked every door, sat down on the couch, and cried. Not because I was broken, but because I finally felt the fire return to my chest. Of course, that wasn't the end. Peter had always been a talker, a smooth liar. I knew he'd try to spin this into something else. And I was right. A few days later, I heard from mutual friends that Peter was claiming I'd set him up, that he thought I was giving him the lake house as part of the divorce deal, that I'd gone crazy and embarrassed him in front of his serious girlfriend. Please, I wasn't about to let him smear me. Not again. So I printed out the deed, highlighted my name, took photos of the interior of the house, with my artwork, my books, even my mother's tulips in bloom outside, and posted a little story of my own. Just one post, one calm, clear explanation. No cursing, no rage, just the truth. And it blew up. Hundreds of shares, dozens of comments, women writing, "Good for you," and "Yes, Queen," and "You should have let her stay and charged rent." My daughter called me the next day, laughing. "Mom, you've gone viral." Even my son, who usually avoided drama, messaged, "I'm proud of you." Seriously. The fallout came fast. Tessa dumped him, publicly. She posted a story of her own, calling him a liar and a freeloader, tagging him in it. It was brutal, but it didn't stop there. Peter's latest business gig, a small consulting firm, started losing clients. Turns out, pretending to be a respectable entrepreneur while squatting in your ex-wife's property isn't great PR. I wasn't done, though. I visited my lawyer and updated all my property protections, ironclad. Then I had locks changed, cameras installed, and finally, I sent Peter an official cease and desist letter, warning him never to step foot on my land again. He tried to text me, tried to call, left voicemails begging me to talk it out. I didn't respond. Silence was louder than any insult I could have thrown. For the first time in years, I felt free. The house was mine again. But more importantly, I was mine again. I started painting more, opened an online shop, even hosted a few small weekend retreats for local artists at the lake house. Women like me, starting over, healing from betrayal. And something beautiful happened. I made peace with the past. I stopped blaming myself. I stopped wondering what I could have done differently. The truth was simple. He chose to betray me, and I chose to rise. A few months later, I received a curious email. It was from a woman named Claire, a mutual acquaintance from Peter's old consulting network. She was organizing a professional development panel for small business owners, and she wanted me to be one of the keynote speakers. Me. Apparently, she'd seen the post about my vacation home story, then checked out my art business. She said she admired how I turned personal pain into purpose. "You represent resilience," she wrote, "and women need to hear that voice." I nearly cried. I hesitated at first. Public speaking had never been my thing. But something inside me, something bold, reborn, said yes. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing. Slides, notes, stories. I titled my talk, "What They Didn't Take From Me." And guess who was also on the guest list? Peter. That's right. He was one of the attendees. Just a guest, not a speaker. Apparently, his business had tanked after the Tessa fiasco, and he was trying to rebuild. How poetic. The event was held at a swanky downtown hotel. Big ballroom, round tables, name tags, and stiff coffee in paper cups. I wore a soft teal pantsuit and pinned one of my hand-painted brooches to the lapel. It looked like a flame. It felt like armor. When I walked into the room, heads turned. People whispered. Some smiled. Others nodded, recognizing me from the post. And there he was, Peter. He looked smaller, worn down, less put together. His suit was wrinkled, his hair thinning, and when our eyes met, he blinked like he couldn't believe I was real. He started walking toward me. "Olivia." I raised a hand. "Not here." He stopped in his tracks, clearly stunned. I didn't owe him a moment, not even a breath. Later, when it was my turn to speak, I took the stage and looked out at the crowd. My voice was steady. My story was raw. I told them about building a life, losing myself in it, and reclaiming what was mine. I didn't name him, but everyone knew. The truth is, I said, looking directly at him without blinking. Sometimes what you think you've lost is actually the best part of yourself coming back. And when people try to take what doesn't belong to them, you don't scream. You don't beg. You stand. The room erupted in applause. Peter couldn't even look at me. And that was the best revenge of all. A week later, a handwritten letter arrived in the mail. From Peter. I almost tossed it, but curiosity got the better of me. It read, "Olivia, I saw you at the event. You were incredible. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Not just for the house, for everything. You didn't deserve how I treated you. I know I messed up my chance at being part of your life. I wish I could go back and do it differently." Peter. I folded the letter carefully and threw it into the fireplace. Some things don't deserve a reply. The lake house is more alive now than ever. I host monthly retreats for women starting over, divorcees, widows, single moms. We laugh, paint, cry, cook together, and sit by the fire telling stories that would make your heart ache. One day, during a quiet afternoon, my daughter Natalie came to visit. She brought wine, a pie she baked herself, and an apology. "Mom," she said, "I'm sorry I didn't take your side more during the divorce. I just didn't know what to believe, but I know now, and I'm proud of you." We cried, hugged, and drank wine until the stars came out. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was sanctuary. It was healing. It was mine. People often ask me how I stayed so calm through it all. The truth is, I didn't always. I screamed into pillows. I broke a vase once just to feel something shatter that wasn't me. I questioned everything. I mourned a man who still breathed. But somewhere along the way, I realized something important. He didn't break me. He released me. He freed me to become the woman I had buried under years of compromise. He tried to take my peace, my space, my story, but he failed because I held on to the one thing no one can fake, borrow, or steal: self-respect. The last time I saw Peter, it was purely by accident. I was at the farmer's market, picking up lavender for the guest room. He was sitting alone at a cafe table, stirring a coffee he hadn't sipped. He looked up. I nodded, politely, and kept walking. No bitterness, no regret, just a quiet joy that filled my chest like sunlight through stained glass. I had survived. I had thrived. And I had done it without revenge, without lowering myself, without losing who I was. For every woman, if you're hearing this and your heart's been broken, if you've been betrayed, dismissed, or made to feel like you're small, you're not alone. You are not foolish for loving deeply. You are not weak for wanting peace. But let this be your sign, your reminder. Do not hand over your power to people who didn't earn it. Rebuild, reclaim, rise. Because when they come back smiling, thinking they can still walk into the house they left you crying in, you'll already have changed the locks. And the woman who answers the door, she's no longer waiting for permission. She owns everything, even the silence that follows when they walk away, empty-handed.